What is going on, guys? I am back on the mic that picks up all the background noise in my room from Spectral Sound Tutorials. That was a terrible intro. But today, I've got an awesome tutorial. It's kind of a follow-up to my tight and punchy drum compression tutorial. If you haven't watched that, then you should go see it because it's good. And I need views. Anyways, this is going to be a tutorial on sidechaining, as it says in the title down there. And I've got a basic drum beat, and I've got a little melody here. And I'm going to talk to you about the different ways to sidechain FL Studio, because there are 1,001 ways in FL Studio to sidechain. There's maybe like 5, but I'm going to show you the way that I do my sidechaining. Why I choose that way is some say takes a little longer, but I've set me up with a little template that makes it a lot easier. Everything's already set up, and you can do this as well. It took me a long time to do it. I should have done it way earlier, but I only did it like last month. I've been producing for years. Jeez. But here we are. Let's give this a listen. It's pretty nice, if I say so myself. And so on and so forth and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. And okay, we're not going to get to that. Now, this is already a studio standard track right here. All it needs is sidechaining, so let's get right into it. What I have done right here is I have my kick and my snare. I've just done minor compression and stuff. This is just getting it up to 0 dB. If you watch my other video, that makes sense, and I do more of this in the other video about drum compression. But right here, I have this, which you cannot hear. It is just a slight burst of like nothing here. I think I cut the mid part out of like a house kick or something, or a trap kick. But what I've done, I have assigned this to a track, and I called it trigger. It's my first track, and it automatically, this first track automatically goes out through the master channel, but I have unrouted it to the master channel, so now you see it peaking on the meter there. It just never goes out through the master, so you never hear it. Now, every time I have a kick or a snare playing, I am going to have my trigger playing. So let's go. I should have done this before. Why didn't I think to do this? You want this to play on every snare or kick hit, or really any hit you want to sidechain. Like this is what creates the sidechaining. And you can see it's playing every time a kick or a snare hits, but you're not actually hearing it, which is what we want. So I'm going to sidechain. Why is this sidechaining to that? I don't need that right now. Please don't give me that. Okay. Now, the kicks and snares are not sidechaining to anything right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my Mario track, which is what the instruments I got there, the high quality instruments are in. So I'm going to right click, press sidechain to this track, and now you see that come up. So, and that's all well and good. Let's go into here and let's select a limiter below all of my other quality post-processing. And now what we're going to do, we're going to throw this one on compressor. We're going to assign to the trigger, which if you assign multiple things to sidechain to one track, you right click, the channels assigned will already pop up. I've only assigned the trigger, so that's good. What I do, a lot of people like to balance this ratio and threshold out. I just put my ratio all the way down and just use the threshold. That's what I think sounds best. I haven't seen many other people doing that at all. But now listen to this mix and hear the effect of the sidechaining. This is basically telling it, the trigger, how much to sidechain the main melody. How much to duck it down when the trigger hits. So let's listen to this. Okay, now you can see when it's all the way down at the bottom, that's an insane amount of sidechaining. That's way too much for like anything, unless you're doing like a bits of white noise. But so I like it at around this area right here. Now that makes the drums punch through a lot more. While the melody is still strong, normally you'd have other stuff over this. This is just the best melody I've ever made, so that's why it's the only track. So it only needs to be the track. So I have that going in there, and that's very, very good, because now we don't get a messy sort of sidechain from the kick and the snare. Since this clip is so short and so snappy, it's just up and down, super fast. So what this does, I can control how much the sidechain also by this release right here. I've turned the attack and the head is up a bit, but I can control with the release. Listen to this. Okay, now you can see in here when the release was really small, the sidechain just ducked up and down quickly. That's mirroring what the trigger is doing. When it was the release was all the way down, it was going so quickly you couldn't even hear the sidechaining. So you don't want that. When it's up really high, this release is super long, so you get a huge big sidechain. I don't think I'd ever do it like all the way up like that. But right here in between, you get a good quick duck down and then a fade up, which is a really smooth form there, good for sidechaining. So we can adjust the release, preferably. I might do it a little deeper with chords or whatever, since this is the melody, like big melodic chords. But I like it right here. Now this, having control, having this small little waveform just going up and popping back, gives you so much control over it, especially when you're sidechaining stuff like dubstep basses, where you really want the strength of the bass to stay, but you don't want it to conflict with the sub or the kicks and the snares and stuff. You really want it to, you want to just duck down and come up, but and still have a powerful punch. So this is the way that I do my sidechaining. It's the way that I like best. I'm going to show y'all a couple different ways to do it as well. So this is the way I like it. You can do that with any instrument, and the good thing is that with this way, I can say I want it to sidechain this much. Let's say I have a big crash cymbal or something that's in insert 11, even though there's nothing even there. I'm going to sidechain to this. A big like splash cymbal that I want to sidechain a lot at the very beginning of the kick. So I will go get my limiter, compressor, trigger, okay. And then I could turn it down to like that. Then I could adjust the release a large amount. So the release for that crash or splash or whatever you have going there is going to be very long. It's going to be like, it's going to have a really big like duck down there to make it really heavy sounding. And I can do that, and it's not going to affect this at all. Now that's probably you're probably thinking, why are you saying that? It's kind of obvious. What I'm saying is, if you're doing it with just the kick, like, your release is going to be this way. You don't have to work with the ducking techniques. That's a problem with the ducking technique that I don't really like. You have to make new automation clips. and you can just customize it for each individual sound. So I'm going to show you a different technique called ducking. Let me replace this with nothing, because we don't want to sidechain. Now it's not sidechaining anything. Sounds so much worse. But okay, just clean this up. Okay. For ducking, what I like to do, you could go in here and get a fruity balance. Okay. Now, this might not come up immediately when you go up here. You have to go to more plugins, and then once you click more plugins, this will come up, and you'll go down here and find a fruity balance. There it is, and just put a check mark beside it. What? I did not mean to do that. Okay, let me go back. I lost my fruity balance. Okay. Oh no, it's still there. Okay, never mind. But yes, and you will have a fruity balance. That's just volume. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to right click, let's create automation clip. This is controlling the volume of the instrument clip right here. What the heck? What the, okay, why is that in drums? I don't know. Bleh. But okay, let's make this a little bigger so we can see. Now, let's copy this value real quick, and just to make it easier, I'm going to paste this into the max. So now this value originally is now at the very top. So I can keep it at the very top and it's the same value. Now, this is directly adjusting the volume of the instrument. So this is the other way. This has even more control over how much, over the sidechain, like the shape of it. But it's a lot messier in my opinion, unless you're doing like really fancy sidechaining. But it's just kind of cluttered in my opinion. And you could create a shape such as this. Okay, that's very heavy sidechaining. And on every hit, you will put the shape right there. And that will do a manual sidechaining, which technically is not sidechaining, it's called ducking. But it's a way people achieve the same effect as sidechaining. So now, let's listen to this. Okay, same basic sound. However, in FL Studio, this technique is better in my opinion, like versus other DAWs. I still use the other technique because you can adjust, if you adjust one, you can adjust all of them. So I could do something like this. Let me highlight all of these and just extend them out. Okay, very nice. I could do something like this. This is gonna get in the way there. So then you can have a tighter shape going. You can really fine tune your shape. You can use a shape which I love, which is the half sign right there. Do something like that for an even tighter. Gives you a really tight sidechain. But yes, the only problem with that is you got a bunch of automation clips here and you have to put it on every beat manually. There's no shortcut to doing this. You couldn't copy the pattern and then paste it into a little trigger clip like I prefer to do. You can't do that. You have to do it manually. So it's a little bit more work, but it can pay off in certain situations. So that is that way. The second way is the first way that I started doing. It is very similar to the way I did with my trigger, except there is no trigger. It's just the kick and the snare, which I find there's not a lot of control in this, in my opinion. This is why I don't use it, but I know many people who do use it. So let's go into here. Instead of sidechaining from the trigger, we're going to sidechain from the kick here. And we are going to sidechain from the snare. Now there is one thing that there is a pro to this. You can adjust your kick and your snare side chains separately. You can adjust how much they actually, okay, we can take this off here, how much they actually side chain per drum. So we need 2 limiters for this one. Pull up both of them. On this limiter, what the heck? Okay, this limiter, go to compressor. We're gonna choose kick. Now we'll just do a little bit of that. Okay, we'll put that up there. Now this limiter, we're going to choose compressor, snare. Beautiful. Now we're going to do the same thing, just do something like that. And now you can adjust your kick and your snare separately. Let's just adjust them. Okay, now that's what I got, and that's all well and good. But you see here this shape in the kick and the snare. It's not clean. This one's slightly cleaner than the other. This is the snare, but oh no, this is the kick. Excuse me. This is the snare. Especially with the kick, you see it's a hill. It's not a sharp curve to create a clean side chain. It's kind of a rough side chain, in my opinion. Instead of ducking quick and coming back up at full strength, it ducks down the entire time the kick is there, including when the sub is there. Because a kick's shape is like up and then down. It doesn't go up and duck quickly, more like the snare does. It goes up and then the sub lasts for a minute and then comes down sharp. And where that is a good kick level, it's not that great in my opinion for side chaining. So you can get some kind of messy side chains. I do side chain like this for my sub bass because you're not gonna hear the sub bass, you feel the sub bass, and we don't want the sub bass, you know, getting all meddled in and messing up with the kick. So what I do use this technique with the kick in the sub, because as soon as the kick ends, that the sub of the kick ends right there, I want the sub bass to come in. No earlier, no sooner. That's why I use this technique for sub bass, but not really for anything else, to be honest. This is the simplest technique. That's the way I started out doing it. I just decided to try a little trigger method here, which I like the best. And side chaining is very important. I've listened to my mixes without side chaining before, especially when they have mastering on them, because it just sounds really messy. Your drums are a huge part for me. I've made tracks and released them with like almost no side chaining. I listen back to them later, I'm like, oh my gosh, it sounds so messy. It just sounds so cluttered. It isn't a clean mix. Things are interfering everywhere. And the sub, I just left the sub running while the kick was there. That was bad. But yeah, side chaining is extremely helpful. Very, very nice. I showed you a few different ways to do it in FL Studio. There are more ways than this. These are just the 3 ways that I prefer to do it. Now, hope you found this video helpful. If you liked it, punch that like button down below in the face like a boss, not Jacksepticeye, and comment what you thought of this tutorial. If there's other ways you prefer, you can talk to people about that. These are just some ways I do. So, peace out.